Okay, let's have a look at a couple of models for a question 5 response, which is the kind of creative writing, imaginative writing. Lots of people call it different things, but it's section B of English language paper 1 on AQA. You're essentially given some choices. You're given the choice of a descriptive or a narrative text. Now, you are not required to specify at the beginning of your piece of writing whether you are doing the story or whether you are doing the description. Um, that said, it should become clear from what you're writing. Now, because it is just one question rather than two questions that you choose from, like it is for some other exam boards, you can do a little bit of a combination. So you can use this picture for inspiration for part of your story, perhaps. But whatever the case, in this video, we're going to have a look at approaches that take completely different responses, different approaches rather, based on whether it is the description of a journey by train or a story about a person with an interesting background. So it's worth 40 marks, whatever you do with it. Now, just a quick note that as we know, when it's a description, it says as suggested by this picture. Now, it does need to be about a journey by train, okay? But it doesn't necessarily have to be a description of the picture itself. Okay, so the picture is there really as an optional thing if you run out of ideas or as just a way to get you started. Okay, but description shouldn't be too story heavy. Whereas the story, obviously, we're expecting some kind of a narrative, and the approach that we take is, or approach that we recommend rather, is the Cinderella arc, which is massively, massively versatile. You can do tons of things with it. And obviously it's not a requirement to do it this way, but this is better than memorizing a story that you're not necessarily going to be able to use. It's essentially this good versus ill fortune, so how well things are going for the character from the beginning to the end. It's 5 paragraphs, and essentially the first paragraph is bad times for the main character, who's really hard done by. The next paragraph is things steadily improving. The next paragraph is experiencing basically the time of their little life. The fourth paragraph is a massive fall from grace where everything falls apart. And then, of course, we have our conclusion, which is a resolution where everything works out even better than imagined. Okay, so that's the Cinderella arc that we have taken for the story. Let's jump into the description first. Okay, so the first thing that this student has done, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, is starting with a clear indication of what it is that you're talking about. Now, I'm not a massive fan of starting with the obvious, with a kind of reference to the title of the question, like you should be doing for analysis. I think with description, it would make more sense to be focusing on this kind of general atmosphere building, like the shuddering softly, the rhythmic clatter, the lulling cadence that echoed faintly through the carriage. That kind of atmosphere setting is a really good way to start. In my opinion, we could then introduce the train a little bit later, because then we haven't just done the obvious. Examiners will see the two words "the train" at the start of every single piece, and it gets a little bit dull. So this works perfectly well, though. We've got some really, really nice, starting with sound imagery. Now, I think that sound imagery is a really good way to generate an atmosphere before you jump into any kind of obvious visual things. Okay, so remember that as humans, we are primarily visual, and then we are aural, okay, spelled A-U-R-A-L, okay? So we see things and we hear things, then we have experiences with the physical sensation, so we touch things, then there's smell, then there's taste. In terms of our order of experience, obviously it's different for different animals, but we are humans. As a result, it's so obvious to start with the visuals, and therefore much more interesting to step back and start with the phonological things, the things that we can hear, the audible things. Okay, so that's a really good way to start. Then we've got really nice, this second sentence, notice how it doesn't just start with the subject of the sentence like the first one does. It starts with a little adverbial just to place our focus outside of the train. And then we've got some really, really lovely color imagery. So we've got the honeyed gold, we've got the bruised lavender. So it's a really effective way of kind of stepping up your color. Your visual imagery is to improve your color descriptions. So honeyed gold instead of just yellow, okay? Honeyed gold is much better. Bruised lavender instead of just purple, it's much better. Can you see how it's an upgrade there? Cast in the countryside in a warm, almost dreamlike glow. Notice that tonally, this paragraph is really consistent as well. So it shuddered softly. It is rhythmic. It is gradually settling. It is a lulling cadence. It is the evening sun is daubing the horizon. There is a warm, almost dreamlike glow. So you notice that the tone is really consistent. It is very gentle. Okay. And what's really important is with a piece of writing like this, if you're going to play about with the tone, then you need to be doing it for a deliberate purpose. Whereas this student has done it in a really nice, deliberate way, maintaining the tone for that first paragraph. Okay. Then we jump into the next paragraph, which is also really good. As we trundle past the suburbs, okay. And every so often, you'll notice that if we start with these kind of adverbials to begin the sentences, it means that not all of our sentences are going to start with the subject of the sentence, okay? Which is a very common thing to do, to start with the subject. If all of our sentences started with the subject, then it would become very, very dull. Subject, verb, and it becomes very dull. Whereas the other sentences that are mixed in really nicely start with the adverbials. Okay, lovely, lovely. We've got a few nice little literary techniques being used as well. So like bunting, so a nice simile there. We've got the like a moving painting. We've got this nice metaphor, a fleeting blur of motion. The vocabulary is also excellent. So we've got words like languid. We've got words like undulating. So undulating means kind of flowing like this. Languid means kind of lazy. So tying into this this tone that we mentioned before. Lazily as well. It's not an impressive piece of vocab, but it ties in with that tone as well. So really, really beautiful language being used. Now, this next paragraph, I've mixed feelings about it. It's obviously good, but I have mixed feelings about it. It's an entire paragraph on smell, okay? So the scent of machine oil, faint citrus, scent of summer, sun-warmed wheat, distant smoke, tang of ozone. I mean, an entire paragraph on smell. I would say it very rarely works. Now this one is fine. This one is absolutely fine. But when we're encouraged to do sensory imagery, right? Really a good thing to be doing. However, I would say that you don't need to be doing all 5. I would say 4 out of 5 is fine. And like I said before, so I wouldn't bother with taste most of the time unless it's relevant. I would start, the majority of my stuff is going to be visual. Then it's going to be aural or oral, right? Then it's going to be, I guess, sensor as in touch based. So I guess like kinesthetic. Then it's going to be olfactory, which is your smell, and then it's going to be taste, which, like I said, I probably wouldn't bother with. Okay, so in that order, in terms of the proportions that you dedicate to it, it's going to be mostly visual, a little bit of sound, some physical sensations of touch, and maybe the odd smell. I would say an entire paragraph on smell, therefore, is a bit of a Interesting choice, not ideal. Okay, this next one, great paragraph, whispering behind me, voices rising, rustle of newspapers. Again, we're falling into the trap, I think, of just going through the sentences one by one. Don't do that. Mix them together. Okay, it seems very obvious. This is what we call contrived. It's too obvious that you are just working your way through the sentences. The way that this paragraph is saved, on the other hand, is when we shift our focus from all of those sounds to something more visual. So this one has actually been rescued quite nicely by having some more visual stuff in there. It's not just those audible things of whispering, voices rising, giggle, exclamation, murmur of conversations, rustle of newspapers, chime of mobile phone blended into a subdued symphony of transit. Nice phrasing. I like that a lot. Anyway, then we get a really nice description of the progress of the journey. The light outside softened further. Time became elastic. Okay, so there is a little bit of narrative, but we need to remember that the narrative isn't telling a story. It is allowing us to progress our description. What I mean by that is if the light is softening, then the experience of what we see outside is different and we can do something new with it. So the passing of time in description is a really valuable thing to do. Just don't get bogged down into describing a bunch of narrative events for one specific character. Again, notice how we are tying it together as we drew deeper. At times, when I opened my eyes again, the train pressed on into the darkening landscape. So we've got these kind of these opportunities for us to probe deeper into our description by moving forward in time. You can obviously pause this video and read the whole thing. I don't want to spend too long on it. But we have some really lovely descriptions in here. We've got lots of nice similes being used. So the flicker of telegraph poles like metronome ticks, like in music, the tick, 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 that keeps the beat. We've got this lovely pocket of movement that held no urgency, lovely metaphor there. We've got the kind of personification of the stars begun to prick the indigo sky. Another simile like floating orbs. What else? Then we get this really nice kind of reflective paragraph to end with. So we changed the discourse style from descriptive to reflective to kind of tie together our whole narrative, which is a really nice way of doing it. Something almost timeless. Now, technically, this is what we would call a fragment or minor sentence. It's not technically grammatical, but in this case, it works really well. Something greater than self, something almost timeless, okay? It doesn't have a main verb, therefore it's not a complete sentence, but it works, okay? It's a really nice way of rounding off this description. But this reflection to end with, to reflect on, as the title suggested, the journey, right? The meaning of the journey. It's a really effective way of resolving a piece of descriptive writing, a little bit of reflection on the significance of that description that's just gone. Okay, the narrative, the story one, much simpler. We have 5 main paragraphs. Okay, so we've got paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, paragraph 5, and we have a little bonus one to kind of again reflect on the significance of the narrative that's come before. Okay, so we have a really nice classic sort of fairy tale style opening with a twist. There was a girl named Eliza Greaves. Okay, so we've got our kind of main idea. We've also got, though, a little description of the setting and a little bit of a detail about this main character. So although it is quite fairy tale like and therefore quite childish, it's expressed in a really beautiful way. So we've got a lovely, we've got this embedded clause here. this embedded clause that drops in the description. Okay, we've got the name of the character. Okay, so we introduce our character. And we've also got some detail about why she is so sad. So we get oriented into the story. So who wore sorrow like a second skin is a beautiful, really powerful simile, which really nails and hits home just how kind of tragic her situation is. Notice the soot-stained docks. It's a crumbling tenement where she lives. So we get a really clear sense from this first paragraph, and indeed from this first sentence, that she struggles a lot. The next sentence again is equally beautiful, really powerful. Barefoot in winter, ink stained in summer, invisible all year round. This is what we call syntactic parallelism. We've got sorry, I didn't want to fit on the screen. We've got this repetition of the adjective barefoot in winter, ink stained adjective in summer, invisible adjective all year round. So we've got the adjectives combined with these adverbials all year round, in summer and in winter. Really, really powerful and effective way of layering up the tragedy for this character. Then we get a little bit of context of how she survived. Then we get a little bit of background about her. Then we get a little bit of the passing of time. Okay, now this is really important in a piece of narrative writing where you're only getting about 45 minutes to write. You need to maintain your pace. Okay, it's a shame because so many students are all they ever read are extracts from novels or entire novels. They never come across any short stories, and therefore they don't know what short stories should look like. And short stories have pace. Short stories move things forward. Okay, so by 14, okay, we've gone from we've basically covered her entire childhood in one paragraph with just these evocative pieces of imagery and similes that really kind of get across how tragic her life has been. Then again, notice we are orienting our reader at all times. It was a Tuesday of little note when. Okay, this it was when is a really effective way of introducing moments of significance. Okay, it was a Tuesday of little note when the stranger arrived, or it was a cloudy evening when I decided to take to the road. It was a sunny morning in November when the clocks stopped working on planet Earth. Like, do you see what I mean? That kind of really powerful structure. It's a really good way of pacing it and moving things forward. Okay, so remember we're only doing this in 5 kind of clear paragraphs. Anyway, we have a little bit of dialogue. Notice that we always recommend minimizing or avoiding dialogue entirely. Okay, but this one, the dialogue has been made effectively, has been done effectively and accurately. So remember, whenever we are doing dialogue, if we choose to use it, we've got ourselves a comma before our speech tag, or a speech tag with a comma before our speech. Okay, so it's really, really simple, but students get it wrong all the time. So don't bother doing any more dialogue than this. Then we move forward, and again, remember, soon. So we have progressed. Soon Eliza was no longer the girl who mended bread, but the one who could repair heirlooms that had defied repair for generations. Okay, so we've got a shift forward in time. Again, blah, 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 blah. The unraveling began. So notice that we have these orienting sentences at the starts of our paragraphs that move the narrative forward. Okay, we don't stay still in a narrative. We've got some really I've got some really kind of beautiful phrasing examples. So paid in gold instead of glances. She dined with patrons. She debated with barons. She laughed more, stood taller. All of these things that we're doing, these are again examples of syntactic parallelism, which are really clever ways of doing things. We've got So we've got paid in gold instead of in glances, okay? Dined with patrons, debated with barons. She laughed more, okay? So verb, adverb. Stood taller, verb, adverb. Okay, and again, owned shoes, verb, that clicked on the marble floors, adverbial phrase, or technically another complement. Okay, so the structure of these sentences is really, really powerful, and it's something that students often overlook as an opportunity. Your sentence construction can really, really show off your writing talents. And so I highly recommend taking that approach. Then we have, obviously, if we're following the Cinderella structure, this is where everything falls apart. You know, everything she had built came tumbling down. So again, these really expressive moments that show what the time passing and significant events taking place. Years passed. And so we've got these orienting phrases at the start of our opening sentences. And we, I mean, if we want to show off a couple of other things that we have done, we've got some really nice range of vocabulary. So we've got these lovely parenthetical M dashes. Okay, so these work as parentheses. Children like she had once been. We've also got the other use of M dashes here. So kind of when we're appending things, we've got a lovely use of a colon, which is accurate. We've got the quotation marks. We've got, I mean, what else? If we want to zoom in on some of the punctuation that's been used, the only thing that I would say, I would probably, if I had been writing this, I would have created opportunities for semicolons. But the examiners are not going through with a checklist going, have they used each of these bits of punctuation? That's not what we do. But if I were wanting to show off my skills and kind of flex my creative writing muscles, I would have included some semicolons in there as well. But it's a really, really strong piece of writing. Now, both of the pieces that I've just kind of annotated and talked you through would have been full marks. Okay, so they're very, very impressive pieces. Obviously, where I'm being critical is just showing that you can have a higher standard for yourself than just the full marks that would get you, your 9 in GCSE. That said, it is very rare that students actually get full marks, and these are incredibly impressive pieces of writing. I'm just showing you how you can stretch things further, how you can be aware of the sorts of common pitfalls in even good writing. It's just, these are some really good responses, and I've spent 20 minutes rabbiting on about them. I hope that was useful.